Document Part 2, The Aftermath of the QRD Test, left Dr. Laura Hayes and her team scrambling to make sense of what had happened. The faint distortion she had seen, the anomaly that no one else seemed to notice, weighed heavily on her mind. She replayed the footage from the test over and over, searching for clues. Each time, she found inconsistencies in the data, power surges that shouldn't have occurred, energy patterns that defied explanation, and brief moments where the readings simply vanished altogether. Ryan Parker joined her in the lab late one night, his face etched with worry. "You're still looking at this?" he asked, glancing at the screens filled with graphs and numbers. "I can't stop," Laura replied without looking up. Her voice was tired, but resolute. "Something isn't right, Ryan. That ripple. It wasn't just a glitch. It felt like, I don't know, like reality itself bent for a second." Ryan sighed and pulled up a chair beside her. "Even if you're right, and I'm not saying you're wrong, what are we supposed to do about it? Carter's already greenlit more tests. He's talking about sending ships out next month." Laura frowned, rubbing her temples. "We need to slow things down. If we rush this, we could be making a huge mistake." But slowing down wasn't an option anymore. The world had caught wind of the breakthrough, and excitement spread like wildfire. News outlets broadcast images of the glowing prototype engine, hailing it as humanity's golden ticket to the stars. Politicians praised President Daniel Carter's vision, while corporations clamored for access to the technology. The pressure to move forward was immense, and dissenting voices were drowned out by the roar of progress. It didn't take long for the Galactic Council to respond. Within days, Ambassador Kale arrived on Earth, accompanied by a delegation of alien envoys. Their presence alone sent shockwaves through global leadership. Humanity had only recently been admitted to the Council as observers, and having such high-profile visitors was unprecedented. For many, their arrivals signaled both hope and fear, a chance to prove humanity's worth or confirm its recklessness. The meeting took place aboard the orbital station Elysium, a neutral zone designed for diplomatic discussions. President Carter stood at the head of the conference table, flanked by advisors and military officials. Across from him sat Kale, his shimmering form exuding calm authority. Other council representatives watched silently, their expressions unreadable. "Mr. President," Kale began, his voice smooth yet firm, "we come before you today, not as adversaries, but as concerned allies. Your recent achievement is remarkable, but it also carries risks far greater than you may realize." Carter leaned back in his chair, his expression guarded. "Ambassador, I appreciate your concern, but I assure you, our scientists are taking every precaution. Humanity is ready for this step." Kale tilted his head slightly, his metallic eyes narrowing. "Are you certain of that? Our scans detected anomalies during your test, anomalies that suggest instability in the fabric of space-time itself. These disturbances, if left unchecked, could destabilize entire star systems." A murmur rippled through the human delegation. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others exchanged skeptical glances. General Marcus Doyle, head of Earth's Strategic Defense Initiative, spoke up. "With all due respect, Ambassador, your scans might be misinterpreting the data. We've conducted extensive research, and our simulations show no such risks." Kale regarded him coolly. "Misinterpretation is unlikely. The Council has studied similar technologies before, though none as advanced as yours. What you call risks, we call potential catastrophes. Do you truly understand the forces you are tampering with?" The room fell silent. Laura, who had been invited to attend as the lead scientist, felt her stomach tighten. She wanted to speak to explain the concerns she'd raised, but knew her voice would carry little weight against Carter's determination. Instead, she remained seated, clutching her notes tightly. President Carter broke the silence with a confident smile. "Ambassador, humanity has always thrived on innovation. Yes, there are challenges, but we've faced them before and succeeded. With proper oversight, we believe the QRD will usher in a new era of exploration and cooperation. Kale's expression hardened. Cooperation or domination? Tell me, Mr. President, how do you plan to prevent others from using this technology irresponsibly? Once unleashed, it cannot be contained. Before Carter could respond, another council representative, tall, insectoid, being named Zinnerus, spoke in a series of clicks and hums translated into English. Your species is young, driven by ambition. But ambition without wisdom leads to ruin. Consider carefully the path you choose. The warning hung heavy in the air. Carter hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but unwilling to back down. I understand your concerns, he said finally, but humanity must chart its own course. Rest assured, we will proceed responsibly. As the meeting adjourned, Kale approached Laura privately. His towering frame loomed over her, yet his tone was gentle. Dr. Hayes, may I speak candidly? Laura nodded nervously. Of course. You seem troubled, Kale observed. Do you share our concerns? She hesitated, then nodded again. Yes, there's something unpredictable about the QRD. I've seen things during the tests that I can't explain, and the anomalies that scare me. Kale studied her for a moment, then placed a hand on her shoulder. Fear is wise when it stems from knowledge. Trust your instincts, Dr. Hayes. The decisions made now will shape not just your future, but ours as well. With that, he turned and rejoined his delegation, leaving Laura shaken. She returned to Earth feeling torn between her duty to science and her growing unease about the project. Despite Kale's words, however, the wheels of progress continued. To turn Dot back at the facility, preparations for the next phase of testing ramped up. Engineers worked around the clock to refine the QRD, addressing minor issues flagged during the initial trial. Laura tried to voice her objections, but her concerns were dismissed as overly cautious. Even Ryan, usually supportive, urged her to focus on solving problems rather than dwelling on hypothetical dangers. They'll listen once we have concrete evidence, he told her one evening as they reviewed new data. Until then, we just have to keep moving forward. Laura wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Every test brought fresh anomalies, each one more pronounced than the last. Equipment malfunctioned inexplicably. Readings fluctuated wildly. And always, there was that faint distortion, a shadowy ripple, in the corner of her vision, taunting her with its elusiveness. Then came the incident near Saturn, during a routine calibration flight. The prototype ship Aurora carried the QRD beyond Earth's orbit for the first time. Piloted by Captain Emily Grant, the mission aimed to simulate interplanetary travel using the drive. Everything went smoothly until the return journey, when the QRD activated near Saturn's rings. What happened next defied explanation. As the Aurora emerged from the jump, a massive rift tore open in space-time, unleashing chaotic energy waves that rippled outward. Satellites orbiting Earth flickered and died. Mars colonies reported strange distortions in time, with clocks speeding up and slowing down erratically. Deep space probes transmitted garbled signals containing fragments of languages no one recognized. On Earth, panic spread as people witnessed bizarre phenomena. In some areas, objects appeared to float momentarily before crashing to the ground. Others reported seeing ghostly images of places they'd never been, or hearing voices speaking in unfamiliar tongues. Scientists scrambled to analyze the effects, but the answers remained elusive. When news of the incident reached the Galactic Council, outrage erupted. Kale convened an emergency session, demanding immediate action. This proves our fears, he declared. Humanity cannot be trusted with such power. Either dismantle the QRD program, or face the consequences. President Carter, however, refused to yield. Addressing the public in a televised speech, he framed the incident as a minor setback, rather than a catastrophe. Every great leap comes with challenges, he assured viewers. We will learn from this and emerge stronger. Humanity's destiny lies among the stars, and nothing will stand in our way. Behind closed doors, tensions escalated. Militaristic factions within Earth's government saw the QRD not just as a tool for exploration, but as a weapon. General Doyle pushed for accelerated development, arguing that humanity needed to demonstrate strength to deter any threats from the Council. Reluctantly, Laura found herself drawn into the conflict, ordered to adapt the QRD for military use. She worked alongside engineers to modify the prototype ship Odyssey. Though she despised the idea of turning her creation into a weapon, she saw no other choice. Resistance would only lead to her replacement, possibly worse outcomes. As work progressed, rumors swirled of alien fleets amassing near Earth's borders. Some claimed the Council planned to intervene directly, forcing humanity to abandon the QRD by any means necessary. Others whispered of rogue factions, preparing to strike preemptively, determined to protect Earth at all costs. Caught in the middle of it all, Laura struggled to reconcile her ideals with the harsh realities unfolding around her. The dream of peaceful exploration had given way to fear and mistrust. Yet even as despair threatened to consume her, she clung to a sliver of hope that, somehow, amidst the chaos, humanity might still find a way to prove itself worthy of the stars. Document Part 5. The Secret Alliance, formed by Dr. Laura Hayes, Ambassador Kale, and Lyra, operated in the shadows, hidden from both Earth's government and the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. Their makeshift lab was located deep within an abandoned asteroid mining station, far from prying sensors and surveillance drones. It wasn't much, just a cluster of old modules connected by narrow tunnels, but it provided the privacy they needed to study the quantum ripple drive QRD. Without interference, Laura stood at the center of the operation, her mind racing as she reviewed data collected during previous tests. Ryan Parker worked beside her, his usual humor replaced by grim determination. Lyra, the Zetherian physicist, floated gracefully nearby, her translucent skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Together, they pored over schematics, simulations, and readings, searching for answers to questions no one fully understood. "We're missing something," Laura muttered, tapping a stylus against the edge of her tablet. "Every time we activate the QRD, these anomalies appear ripples in space-time that shouldn't exist. But why? What are we interacting with?" Lyra tilted her head, her large, luminous eyes reflecting the glow of nearby monitors. "Perhaps not what, but who," she suggested softly. "Your drive taps into energies older than your species or mine. Energies left behind by beings who shaped reality itself." Ryan frowned, leaning closer. "You mean, like gods or something?" Lyra hesitated before responding. "Not gods, exactly. More like architects. Beings who built the framework of existence long before life as we know it emerged. If your QRD disrupts their work, even unintentionally, the consequences could ripple across the cosmos." Laura felt a chill run down her spine. The idea was staggering, almost too big to comprehend. Yet it made sense in a way. The fractures, the distortions, the strange phenomena reported after each test. They all pointed to something beyond human understanding. Something ancient and powerful. "Then, we need to figure out how to stabilize it," Laura said firmly. "If we can control the interaction, maybe we can prevent further damage." Kale entered the lab just then, his towering frame casting a shadow over the group. "Progress?" he asked, his metallic voice calm but tinged with urgency. "Some," Laura admitted, "but not enough. We're still piecing things together." Kale nodded, his expression unreadable. "Time is slipping away. The Council grows restless, and humanity's leaders prepare for war. You must move quickly." As if on cue, alarms blared suddenly, echoing through the station. Red warning lights flashed, bathing the room in an eerie glow. Everyone froze, hearts pounding. "What's happening?" Ryan demanded, rushing to a nearby console, before anyone could answer. The station shuddered violently, throwing equipment off shelves and sending tools clattering to the floor. Through the viewport, they saw flashes of energy erupting outside, a barrage of weapons, fire tearing through the asteroid field. "They found us," Cale stated grimly. "General Doyle's forces." Laura's stomach sank. She had feared this moment would come. Despite their efforts to stay hidden, someone must have leaked their location. Now, they were under attack and completely unprepared to defend themselves. "Everyone, secure the data," Laura shouted, snapping into action. "We can't let them take the research." The team scrambled to save their work, transferring files to encrypted drives while dodging debris shaken loose by the assault. Outside, explosions lit up the darkness as human ships closed in, their sleek hulls gleaming under the harsh light of distant stars. Lyra moved with surprising speed, her movements fluid despite the chaos. "I'll hold them off," she said, her voice steady. "Get to the escape pods." "No way," Ryan protested. "We're not leaving you here." "There's no time to argue," Lyra replied sharply. "Go. Trust me, I'll catch up." Reluctantly, Laura and Ryan obeyed, knowing there was no other choice. With Cale leading the way, they sprinted through the twisting tunnels toward the docking bay. Behind them, the sound of gunfire grew louder, punctuated by the ominous creak of metal giving way under stress. Reaching the bay, they found to escape. Pods ready for launch. Laura hesitated, glancing back toward the lab. "What about Lyra?" she asked, guilt twisting her gut. "She'll be fine," Cale assured her, though his tone betrayed uncertainty. "Get inside. I'll handle the controls." They climbed into the pod, strapping themselves in as Cale sealed the hatch. Moments later, the vessel ejected from the station, hurtling into space, just as another explosion rocked the facility. Through the small viewport, they watched in horror as flames engulfed the lab, consuming everything including Lyra. "She saved us," Ryan whispered, his voice choked with emotion. She knew what would happen. Laura clenched her fists, tears stinging her eyes. "We owe her everything." The pod drifted silently for several minutes before being intercepted by a council ship. Cale communicated with the crew, explaining their situation and requesting safe passage. Grateful for the rescue, Laura and Ryan were escorted to a secure chamber aboard the vessel, where they began processing what had just happened. Meanwhile, news of the attack reached General Marcus Doyle, furious that the rogue scientists had escaped. He ordered an immediate investigation into how they had been discovered. His suspicions fell on Ambassador Cale, whom he accused of orchestrating the entire operation. "He's manipulating them," Doyle growled during a meeting with President Carter, "using fear to turn our own people against us." Carter listened, thoughtfully, his expression unreadable. While he distrusted the council, he couldn't ignore the growing evidence of internal betrayal. Someone close to the project had leaked information, and whoever it was posed a grave threat to humanity's plans. Back aboard the council ship, Laura and Ryan worked tirelessly to recover the stolen data. Though much of it had been lost in the attack, fragments remained intact enough to continue their analysis. Lyra's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. Her final act ensured that the research survived, giving them a fighting chance to uncover the truth about the QRD. As days turned, in 2 weeks, tensions between Earth and the Council escalated further. Diplomatic channels broke down entirely, replaced by threats and posturing. War seemed inevitable, yet neither side dared strike first, not while the fate of the QRD hung in the balance. In the quiet moments between frantic work sessions, Laura often thought about Lyra and the others who had risked everything to protect their mission. She remembered Cale's words, "Trust is fragile, but it can be rebuilt." For now, trust existed only within their small group. bound together by shared purpose and mutual desperation. One evening, as she stared out a viewport at the endless expanse of stars, Ryan joined her. "Do you think we can actually fix this?" he asked quietly. Laura didn't answer right away. The enormity of the task weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she refused to give up. "We have to," she said finally, "because if we don't, nothing else matters." And so, amidst loss and uncertainty, the team pressed on, driven by hope and the belief that even in the darkest times, solutions could still be found. The road ahead was treacherous, but they had no choice but to keep moving forward for the sake of humanity, the galaxy, and the fragile fabric of reality itself. Document Part 1. The moon hung silently in the vast darkness of space, its surface pockmarked with craters and dust. Beneath its gray exterior, hidden within a sprawling underground facility, humanity's greatest minds worked tirelessly on a project that would change everything. Dr. Laura Hayes stood at the center of it all, her eyes fixed on a glowing holographic display hovering above the control panel. Her heart raced as she watched streams of data scroll across the screen. This was it, the moment they had been working toward for years. The quantum ripple drive, or QRD, as everyone called it, wasn't just another invention. It was humanity's first step into faster-than-light travel, a way to cross galaxies in hours instead of centuries. For decades, people dreamed of exploring the stars, but the limitations of physics always held them back. Now, thanks to Laura and her team, those barriers were about to fall. But even as excitement buzzed through the room, there was an undercurrent of unease. Something felt off. Laura glanced over her shoulder at Ryan Parker, her closest colleague and friend. He leaned against a nearby console, arms crossed, his brow furrowed in thought. His usually cheerful demeanor seemed muted today, replaced by a quiet tension. "You okay?" Laura asked, her voice soft enough not to carry over the hum of machinery. Ryan hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted. "This is huge. Bigger than anything we've ever done. What if something goes wrong?" Laura forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Something always goes wrong," she said lightly. "That's why we test. That's why we're careful." But deep down, she shared his concerns. The QRD wasn't like other technologies. Instead of simply moving through space, it bent reality itself, creating ripples in space-time that allowed ships to leap unimaginable distances. Early simulations showed promise, but there were anomalous tiny fractures appearing briefly during tests, then vanishing without explanation. Most of the team dismissed these glitches as insignificant, but Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they were something far more dangerous. Upstairs, in the observation deck overlooking the lab, President Daniel Carter watched the proceedings with barely contained eagerness. A tall man with sharp features and a commanding presence, he represented humanity's ambition better than anyone else. To him, the QRD wasn't just science, it was destiny. With this new technology, Earth could finally claim its place among the stars, joining the Galactic Council as equals rather than supplicants. "Dr. Hayes," he said, his voice cutting through the intercom system. "How much longer until activation?" Laura flinched slightly at the interruption, but quickly composed herself. 10 minutes, Mr. President," she replied. "We're running final diagnostics now." "Good," Carter said, his tone firm. "Make sure everything is perfect. Humanity's future depends on this." As the transmission ended, Ryan let out a low whistle. "No pressure, right?" Laura chuckled nervously. "Yeah, no pressure at all." Despite the mounting tension, the countdown continued. Technicians moved between stations, checking readings and adjusting settings. The air crackled with anticipation. Finally, the moment arrived. Laura took a deep breath and gave the order. "Initiate sequence." The room fell silent, except for the steady beeping of monitors. On the central platform, a sleek prototype engine, began to glow, its core pulsating with energy. Slowly, the light intensified, filling the chamber with an eerie blue radiance. Then, with a deafening roar, the QRD activated. For a brief instant, time seemed to stand still. Everyone held their breath, watching as the engine generated a shimmering field around it. It was beautiful and terrifying. Just as suddenly as it started, the process ended, leaving behind only silence. It worked, someone whispered, breaking the spell. Cheers erupted throughout the lab, echoing off the walls. People hugged each other, tears streaming down faces. Even Ryan managed a genuine smile, clapping Laura on the back. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with awe. But Laura didn't join in the celebration. She stared at the engine, her mind racing. Something about the test felt incomplete. As the others celebrated, she noticed a faint flicker in the corner of her vision, distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from asphalt. No one else seemed to see it, but Laura couldn't ignore it. Before she could investigate further, alarms blared throughout the facility. The ground trembled slightly, throwing everyone off balance. Panic spread as technicians scrambled to identify the source of the disturbance. On the main monitor, a series of warnings flashed red. Structural integrity compromised. Power fluctuations detected. Unknown energy signatures detected. "What's happening?" Carter demanded, his voice sharp with alarm. "I don't know," Laura shouted back, her hands flying over the controls. "It's not supposed to do this." The distortion grew stronger, rippling outward from the engine. Equipment sparked and shorted out, plunging parts of the lab into darkness. Then, with a final burst of energy, the anomaly vanished as quickly as it appeared. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of labored breathing. When the dust settled, Laura turned to Ryan, her face pale. "We need to shut it down," she said urgently. "Now." Ryan nodded grimly. "Agreed. Whatever just happened, it wasn't natural." As the team worked to deactivate the QRD, news of the incident spread beyond the confines of the facility. Within hours, reports reached the Galactic Council, a coalition of advanced alien civilizations, tasked with maintaining peace and stability across the galaxy. They had been monitoring humanity's progress closely, wary of Earth's rapid technological advancements. When word arrived that the QRD might pose a threat not just to humanity, but to the entire universe, panic rippled through their ranks. Ambassador Kale, a representative of the Valen species known for their wisdom and patience, listened intently as advisors debated the implications. Tall and regal, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, Kale exuded authority. Yet beneath his calm exterior, concern brewed. If the humans couldn't control their own creation, the consequences could be catastrophic. "We must act swiftly," one advisor urged. "Their recklessness endangers us all." Kale raised a hand, silencing the room. "Let us not jump to conclusions," he said evenly. "First, we must understand the full scope of the problem. Only then can we decide how best to proceed." Meanwhile, back on Earth, President Carter refused to let fear dictate policy. Despite the warnings and the anomalies, he saw the QRD as humanity's ticket to greatness. Public support surged after footage of the successful test leaked online, fueling demands for immediate implementation. Corporations lined up to invest in the technology, eager to reap the benefits of interstellar trade and colonization. Laura tried to voice her concerns, but her protests fell on deaf ears. Carter dismissed her fears as overcautiousness, insisting that perfection came through practice. Reluctantly, she agreed to oversee additional tests, hoping to uncover answers before it was too late. Unbeknownst to her, however, forces both human and alien were already moving pieces into place. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine not just humanity's fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. And so, amidst triumph and trepidation, the story of the quantum ripple drive began, a tale of ambition, discovery, and the fragile line between progress and peril. Document. Part 4. The fallout from the Zinari massacre sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the attack spread faster than light itself, carried by diplomatic channels, and whispered among alien species who had once viewed humanity with cautious optimism. The Zinari were known for their peaceful nature, their trade hubs serving as neutral zones where even rival factions could exchange goods without fear of conflict. To see such a place destroyed by humanity, no less was unthinkable. For many, it confirmed their worst fears about Earth's intentions. Dr. Laura Hayes felt sick when she heard the details. The Odyssey had struck without warning, using the quantum ripple drive to appear suddenly near the trade hub before unleashing devastating firepower. Thousands died in moments, their ships reduced to debris floating silently in the void. Survivors spoke of chaos and terror, describing how the human attackers vanished as quickly as they arrived, leaving behind only destruction. Laura knew this wasn't just an isolated incident, it was a turning point. Humanity had crossed a line, and there would be no going back. She sat alone in her quarters aboard the research facility, staring at the glowing screen of her tablet. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one more damning than the last. Alien leaders condemned the attack, calling for justice or vengeance. Even within Earth's own ranks, voices of dissent began to rise. Some scientists and diplomats questioned whether the QRD was worth the cost, while others argued that humanity needed to prepare for war. Ryan Parker found her later that night, sitting in silence, with dark circles under her eyes. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said softly, pulling up a chair beside her. "I feel like I have," Laura replied, her voice barely above a whisper. This isn't what we built the QRD for. It was supposed to help us explore, to connect, not destroy." Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but you can't blame yourself for what they've done with it." "You didn't pull the trigger, didn't I?" Laura shot back, her tone sharper than she intended. "If I hadn't created the drive in the first place, none of this would have happened." Maybe Kale was right. Maybe we're not ready for something like this. Ryan hesitated, unsure how to respond. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her that she couldn't have foreseen any of this, but the truth was harder to deny. They both knew the risks. They'd seen the anomalies, the fractures in reality, and yet they'd kept moving forward, driven by ambition and pressure from above. Now, those choices had consequences far beyond anything they imagined. Elsewhere, President Daniel Carter faced mounting criticism. Public opinion shifted rapidly as images of the Zinari massacre dominated news feeds. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read "No More War" and "Stop the Madness." Even members of his own administration began questioning his leadership, accusing him of prioritizing power over peace. Yet Carter remained defiant, refusing to apologize or back down. "This is not a time for weakness," he declared during an emergency press conference. "We are being tested, and we must stand firm. The Galactic Council seeks to control us, to hold us back because they fear our potential. But humanity will not be cowed. We will defend ourselves and secure our place among the stars." His words rallied some, but alienated others. General Marcus Doyle, meanwhile, doubled down on military preparations. Under his command, engineers worked tirelessly to produce more ships equipped with the QRD. He believed that demonstrating strength was the only way to deter further aggression from the Council. "They respect power," he told his subordinates. "Once they see what we're capable of, they'll think twice before threatening us again." But Ambassador Kale saw things differently. Back aboard the Council chambers, he addressed the assembly with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "Humanity has shown its true face," he said, his metallic voice echoing through the room. "Their actions speak louder than words. Peace cannot coexist with such recklessness." Calls for retaliation grew louder, but Kale urged caution. War will solve nothing, he continued. It will only deepen the divide and risk greater catastrophe. Instead, let us offer them one final chance to prove they are capable of change. Against the protests of some counselors, Kale proposed a bold compromise: allow a joint task force of human and alien engineers to study the QRD under strict supervision. If they could stabilize the technology and prevent future disasters, humanity might earn a reprieve. But if they failed, the Council reserved the right to take drastic measures, including dismantling the program entirely. News of the proposal reached Earth quickly, sparking heated debates. Carter dismissed it outright, viewing it as an attempt to undermine humanity's sovereignty. "We won't let outsiders dictate our progress," he snapped during a private meeting with advisors. "If they want war, they'll get it." But Laura saw hope in Kale's offer. Desperate to prevent further bloodshed, she requested an audience with Carter, determined to make him listen. Accompanied by Ryan, she entered the president's office, her heart pounding with nerves. "Mr. President," she began, her voice steady despite her anxiety. "Please hear me out. This isn't just about pride or politics anymore. The QRD poses a threat to everyone, to us, to the Council, to the entire galaxy. If we don't address it now, the consequences could be catastrophic." Carter leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "And what exactly do you propose we do, Dr. Hayes? Hand over our greatest achievement to the very people who want to hold us back?" "No," Laura countered. "Work with them. Let them help us understand the risks and find solutions. Isn't that better than risking everything in a war we might not win?" For a moment, Carter seemed to consider her words, then he shook his head firmly. "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Hayes, but my decision stands. Humanity's future depends on staying strong, not bowing to threats." Frustrated but unwilling to give up, Laura turned to Ryan after the meeting. "He's not going to listen," she said bitterly. "What else can we do?" Ryan thought for a moment, then nodded toward the door. "There's someone else who might." That night, Laura met secretly with Ambassador Kale aboard the same neutral shuttle where they'd spoken before. She explained Carter's refusal, and shared her growing fears about the QRD's instability. "I think there's something bigger at play here," she admitted. "Something ancient, buried deep in the fabric of space-time. If we keep pushing forward blindly, we could awaken forces we don't understand." Kale listened intently, his expression grave. "Then perhaps it's time to act without permission," he suggested. "Gather those you trust, both human and alien, and begin studying the QRD in secret. If we can uncover its secrets, we may still prevent disaster." It was a risky plan, fraught with danger, but Laura knew they had no other choice. With Kale's support, she reached out to Lyra, a brilliant physicist from the Zitharian race, who had previously assisted with analyzing the QRD's mechanics. Together, they assembled a small team of scientists and engineers willing to defy orders and work toward a solution. As tensions escalated between Earth and the Council, this fragile alliance formed in the shadows. Trust was hard to come by, especially given recent events, but shared purpose brought them together. Each member understood the stakes. Failure meant annihilation, not just for humanity, but for countless others. Meanwhile, General Doyle prepared for the next phase of his strategy. Convinced that strength was the only language the Council understood, he authorized covert missions to gather intelligence on alien defenses. These operations pushed humanity closer to the brink of war, heightening paranoia and distrust on all sides. Laura watched it all unfold with a heavy heart. Every day brought new challenges, new dangers. Yet amidst the chaos, she clung to a sliver of hope that science and collaboration might still prevail over fear and violence. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity's fate rested not just on the QRD, but on the choices made by those brave enough to challenge the status quo. And so, beneath the shadow of impending conflict, a quiet rebellion took shape, a desperate bid to save not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. Document. Part 3. The incident near Saturn sent shockwaves through humanity and the Galactic Council alike. The rift created by the quantum ripple drive QRD had unleashed energy waves that disrupted not only Earth's satellites but also colonies on Mars and beyond. Strange phenomena rippled across the solar system. Time dilation anomalies made hours stretch into days in some regions, while communications from deep space probes returned fragmented messages spoken in languages no one recognized. People on Earth reported seeing fleeting visions of unfamiliar landscapes, or hearing whispers in tones they couldn't understand. Fear spread faster than anyone could contain it. Dr. Laura Hayes watched the chaos unfold from her lab, her heart sinking. With every report, she had warned them. She had seen the signs of fractures in space-time during tests, the anomalies she couldn't explain, but no one listened. Now, the consequences were undeniable, and humanity stood at a crossroads. Would they pause, reassess, and address the dangers? Or would they double down, fueled by pride and ambition? President Daniel Carter chose the latter path. Instead of grounding further tests, he announced plans to accelerate development of the QRD in a televised address. He framed the Saturn incident as an unavoidable hiccup, a minor setback on the road to greatness. Every great leap forward comes with risks, he declared, his voice steady and confident. But we will not let fear hold us back. Humanity's destiny lies among the stars, and nothing will stop us. His words rallied public support, but they also deepened divisions within the scientific community. Some researchers applauded the decision, eager to push boundaries and unlock the full potential of the QRD. Others, like Laura, felt sickened by the disregard for safety. Ryan Parker, her closest ally, grew increasingly frustrated as well. "They're treating this like a race instead of a responsibility," he muttered one evening as they pored over data together. "What happens when the next anomaly isn't just a ripple? What if it tears something apart permanently?" Laura didn't answer. She didn't need to. Both of them knew the stakes were higher, no end getting worse with each passing day. Meanwhile, tensions with the Galactic Council reached a boiling point. Ambassador Kale called another emergency meeting aboard the orbital station Elysium, this time joined by representatives from nearly every major alien civilization. The atmosphere was tense, charged with anger and distrust. President Carter attended reluctantly, flanked by General Marcus Doyle and other military advisors. Laura was summoned as well, though she suspected her presence was more symbolic than practical. Kale wasted no time cutting to the heart of the matter. His metallic eyes gleamed with barely restrained frustration as he addressed Carter directly. "Your actions endanger not only your species, but all life in the galaxy. The rift near Saturn proves the instability of your technology. It is reckless to continue without safeguards." Carter stiffened, his jaw tightening. "Ambassador, I respect your concerns, but humanity has always thrived on innovation. We've faced challenges before and overcome them. With proper oversight, the QRD can be refined and made safe." "Oversight?" Zinra, the insectoid counselor, interjected sharply. Her clicks and hums translated into English carried a biting edge. "You speak of oversight after unleashing such destruction. Your species lacks the maturity to wield such power responsibly." General Doyle stepped forward, his uniform crisp, and his demeanor unyielding. "With respect, Counselor, humanity won't bow to threats. The QRD represents our future, and we won't abandon it because others are afraid of progress." The room erupted into heated debate. Voices rose, tempers flared, and accusations flew back and forth. Laura sat silently, feeling like a spectator, caught in the middle of a storm. She glanced at Kale, who remained eerily calm despite the chaos. When he finally spoke again, his voice cut through the noise like a blade. Progress unchecked leads to ruin, Kale said firmly. If you refuse to dismantle the QRD voluntarily, the Council will consider stronger measures to ensure the safety of the galaxy. The threat hung heavy in the air. Stronger measures could mean anything from economic sanctions to outright military intervention. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Carter broke the silence with a cold smile. "The choice is yours, Ambassador," he said. "But know this, humanity won't back down. If you try to stop us, you'll find we're capable of defending ourselves." As the meeting adjourned, Laura felt a chill run down her spine. The standoff between humanity and the Council wasn't just political, it was personal. Each side viewed the other as a threat, and compromise seemed impossible. Yet, even as the leaders clashed, smaller factions began plotting their own moves behind the scenes. Back on Earth, militaristic elements within the government seized the opportunity to push their agenda. General Doyle argued that the QRD could be adapted for defense as well as exploration. Under his orders, engineers modified the prototype ship Odyssey to carry weapon systems alongside the drive. The goal was clear: demonstrate humanity's strength and deter any potential aggression from the Council. Laura found herself drawn deeper into the project, forced to adapt her invention for purposes she never intended. Ryan noticed the change in her demeanor. One night, as they reviewed schematics for the upgraded Odyssey, he placed a hand on her shoulder. "You look like you haven't slept in days," he said gently. "What's going on?" She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I don't know how much longer I can do this, Ryan. Every step feels wrong. They're turning my work into something dangerous, a weapon instead of a tool." Ryan frowned, his expression sympathetic but firm. "I get it. But walking away won't fix anything. If you quit, someone else will take your place, and they might not care about the risks like you do. At least here, you can still try to make a difference." His words offered little comfort, but Laura knew he was right. Abandoning the project wouldn't stop the momentum, it would only leave her powerless to influence its direction. Still, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe. Amidst the escalating tensions, rumors spread of secret negotiations taking place far from public view. Ambassador Kale reached out to Laura privately, requesting a meeting outside official channels. Curious and desperate for answers, she agreed to meet him aboard a neutral shuttle docked near the Elysium. When she arrived, Kale greeted her with a nod, his towering frame casting a shadow over the small cabin. "Dr. Hayes," he began, his tone measured but urgent. "Time is running out. The Council grows impatient, and war becomes more likely with each passing day. Tell me, can the QRD be stabilized, or must it be destroyed?" Laura hesitated, torn between hope and despair. I don't know," she admitted. "There are forces at play that I don't fully understand. The anomalies suggest the drive interacts with something ancient, something buried deep in the fabric of reality. Without more research, I can't say whether it can ever be truly safe." Kale studied her closely, his expression unreadable. "Then perhaps collaboration is the key. Allow us to assist you, to bring our knowledge and resources to bear. Together, we may find a solution." The offer surprised her. Collaboration with the Council had been unthinkable just weeks earlier, yet now it seemed like the only way to avoid catastrophe. Still, she knew convincing Carter and the military would be nearly impossible. "Even if I agree," she said cautiously, "there's no guarantee they'll listen." "Then convince them," Kale urged. "Remind them what's at stake, not just for humanity, but for everyone. Trust is fragile, but it can be rebuilt. Start with honesty." With those words, Kale left her alone in the shuttle, the weight of his plea settling heavily on her shoulders. As she returned to Earth, Laura wrestled with the decision ahead. Could she bridge the gap between humanity and the Council, or was the divide too wide to cross? While Laura grappled with these questions, events spiraled further out of control. Militaristic factions within Earth's government grew bolder, emboldened by Carter's defiance of the Council. General Doyle authorized a covert operation to test the Odyssey's combat capabilities. The mission targeted a neutral trade hub controlled by the Zenaria peaceful alien race. Sympathetic to humanity's plight, the attack was swift and brutal. Using the QRD, the Odyssey appeared suddenly near the trade hub, catching the Zenari completely off guard. Weapons fire tore through the station, destroying ships and infrastructure alike. Thousands perished in the assault, leaving survivors traumatized and enraged. News of the massacre spread quickly, sparking outrage across the galaxy. When reports reached the council chambers, fury erupted. Kale stood before the assembly, his voice trembling with emotion. "This is what we feared," he declared. "Humanity cannot be trusted. Their recklessness endangers us all. Unless drastic action is taken, there can be no peace." Calls for retaliation echoed throughout the council. Some advocated immediate annihilation of Earth, while others pushed for a blockade to isolate humanity until they surrendered the QRD. Amidst the chaos, Laura realized the window for diplomacy was closing rapidly. If she didn't act soon, war would become inevitable. And so, amidst betrayal and bloodshed, humanity's dream of reaching the stars transformed into a nightmare of mistrust and violence. The choices made in the coming days would shape not just Earth's fate, but the future of the entire galaxy.